Hey everybody, I'm Leland, the HCV case manager at the HIV Alliance. I want to talk a little bit about some of the barriers that we find along the way here, and what we've been seeing since COVID-19 has kicked in and how it's affected things a little bit. It's been a struggle always as it is along the way with clients. First of all, they start off with their own issues of not feeling necessarily any side effects or any pain from their hepatitis C, so they don't think it's a big deal sometimes. And so we have to enlighten them, about the importance of getting something done, because sometimes what doesn't hurt is still killing you. So it's really important. We try to give them all the information we can, and make sure that they know what's going on inside their bodies and what needs to happen. And then we also, as we send them to providers for blood work, and to see about helping them get medicine, we keep still, even after all the education that we've been putting out and all the things that we know about the restrictions being lifted, as far as for people with Hep C getting the meds, we still find an awful lot of providers who are refusing actually to give clients treatment without 6 months clean and sober time, and asking them, even people on OHP, how they plan on paying for the medicine. So it's a kind of misinformation, that's going around, and we're kind of have an issue, wondering if it's, do we need to just send some people out and for some more education here, because it shouldn't be like this. So the battle goes on, still. Every time I think that maybe we got people, things figured out and people educated and a nice smooth path rolling, I hit more bumps along the way, it seems. So I reached out to some people recently that are actually considering doing a whole education program here in this area. Just start with groups of providers and give them a refresher or maybe new information, and just start from square one and do some provider education. And COVID, of course, COVID-19 has put every other thing in the world, it seems, that was up front and being dealt with on the back burner, as we dealt with the pandemic. And so those situations have made things a little more difficult too. Doctors doing most of their things through telemedicine or whatever, and you're not being able to get to your doctor as readily, as easily as once a person could. Going into emergency rooms or urgent cares and everything is a whole different story now than it was a year ago or before the pandemic hit. So those things are all causing issues as well. And hopefully, if we continue to do the things that we've been doing to protect ourselves, we'll get these numbers down and get back to whatever the new normal is going to be. Now, after all that, I do want to tell you a little success story that we've had here over the past year and a half or so. We had a client here. I don't know how to describe her, except she was one of those emotionally distraught, you could go through every range of emotions possible, from tears to anger to laughter to whatever, all in a matter of a couple of minutes, and you never knew what was going to happen. And boy, she lashed out at people and fought all the time. It was just a little tiny thing, but boy, she would scrap with the best of them, living on the streets and just really causing hate and discontent everywhere she went. And one day she came in and asked to see me, and I could tell it was another one of those days, and I just took her in a side room and said, what's going on? Let's talk for a while. And after about 5 minutes or so of talking to her, I could tell she hadn't eaten anything. And she said 3 days or something. So I ran back to the kitchen, got some chili and some toast, and then come out and made it just something, the quickest thing I could do. So as we started to talk, and then she finally just started crying and telling me that she just can't live like this anymore. Started telling me a few things that had happened to her over the past week, and it was just horrific, and she was so tired of being on drugs and and things. She goes, I'm just done, I got to do something. And I just looked at her and I said, so you want to go to Buckley, which is our local detox center? And she goes, do you think you can get me in there? I go, well, yeah, I know I can. And she goes, well, when do you want to do that? I said, well, how about right now? Are you ready right now? She goes, you'll take me right now? I go, I'll put you in my car right now. I'll take you straight to Buckley. And she goes, okay. And that's the biggest thing. I can offer things all day long, but somebody's got to say that, that moment when she said I was done, I said, well, if you're done, let's go now before something else pops up and, the chicken walks by or whatever it is that's going to detract you from where you're focused right this minute. So, and she said, okay, let's go. So I got hold of my boss and said, I'm taking her right now. Then we're going to go to Buckley. And she just, my boss's eyes get big, but, but really? I said, yep, we're going. And so we grabbed her coat and a couple things and headed on down. And at that point in time, thankfully, sure, her drug of choice was methamphetamine and not opiates. So they said, well, she doesn't really need detox per se. She just needs a bed, where she can get some rest. She's going to get tired here as she comes down, and she's going to sleep. So all in one afternoon, on a Friday afternoon, late, I also had a family member who was kind of working at one of the substance abuse treatment, like inpatient places here in town. And so I gave her a call and said, look, this is what I got going on. She's a little wild, in fact, she's a lot wild. She's probably going to cause a lot of problems over there for you guys along the way. She's angry. She's loud. She's got a potty mouth like a trucker, and and I said, will you take her? And she looks at me and goes, are you serious? I go, absolutely. She goes, okay. So that afternoon, I got her from living on the streets and looking hopeless to inpatient treatment on a Friday afternoon, and which everybody pretty much had told me was not possible on a Friday afternoon to make that happen, So she went through her treatment, and then now she has got the medicine, finished the medicine, no longer has hepatitis C. Been working, has a new husband and a baby, and and is really doing well. We see her still every once in a while. It's like she works at one of my favorite dairy marts I go to in the morning, whatever, and get a chance to see her there, and she's just thanks me all the time, and it's like, yeah, it's not really about me. She did it that just by being willing to jump right at that moment, and go. It was a wonderful day, and that's a whole different person now. So for me, it's still one of the biggest successes we've had, to be able to take somebody, so rough and so wild and so distraught, and and watch her blossom into a hardworking mom, and a wife, and all around good person. So to me, that's a win.